Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain. And today on Cool Your Heels with Lillian, we're talking with Robert Huffman from Movember and the Dad Ambassador, Matt Skinner. So good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you gentlemen doing?
Good morning. I'm doing very well.
Doing well over here as well.
Yes. So you're both representing mental health for men, which is not a subject that is freely discussed. In fact, there's a lot of taboo about it, and you're finally coming out of the closet, huh?
That's right.
Yeah, it's been a long time process for myself, and I think for a lot of men, to find their voices to be able to talk about this key issue, because as men, as dads, we struggle at times, and we need to be able to find a voice and have conversations with each other.
Is it because of the macho-ness of men? I mean, can you see John Wayne saying, I have a mental health problem?
I think there's a few reasons why guys, tend to not open up for certain issues, and we all have our own experiences, definitely. And that bravado piece of it, could be something for certain guys, and it could be a generational thing as well. I know a lot of my friends, in their mid-30s, have started to open up more about the issues they were facing, whether it be relationship issues or career struggles. And so I think there's definitely multiple reasons why, guys don't open up, but there is that stereotype that guys like to, just tuck things under the bed, and, always kind of be stoic. And so that we're trying to normalize the conversation around mental health among men, for sure.
Yeah, I think
I know.
I definitely agree. I think that there's the difference between my dad's generation and my generation, and even I'm 47 now, and so then the 20-year-olds are even different. I think once we all learn a same language, we're dealing with different stuff too, of different time periods, but learning to ask the correct questions is key.
Okay, I'm 69. And I know that when my brother, who is a year and a half older than I was, recommended to go to a psychiatrist for help, he said, I can't go. If I put that on my resume, I'll never get a job. Has that finally been thrown out the window for men if they do need help and they do need a doctor's help to go through it?
I think we're getting there. And you brought up a good point of how Hollywood and the influencers play a role within the space of mental health. Guys like John Wayne, James Bond, versus, some of the people you see on YouTube today. I think, celebrities, actors, athletes have a big role to play within mental health. And I think because of people like, Kevin Love, who have spoken openly about his anxiety, have really influenced our younger generation that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to talk about these things. And so I think the dynamic in the conversation is shifting a lot, so guys are actually confident in saying that they've struggled with their mental health and that they are going to see a counselor.
Yeah, I think there's a trade-off that we're dealing with now in this day and age of social media, where we find that we think we're more connected to everybody because we see all the wonderful pictures and we see the travels that people are doing, but we're not following up with the questions and saying, I don't actually post the pictures of, when my son is having a bad day because he's stuck at home because of the lockdown or stuff like that. And so being able to share the good times and the bad times is key. And so when you can have an advocate who has a wide voice, an influencer, an actor, a musician, then I think it really helps open up the conversations.
So do I. I think that for boys, especially in today's world, it's a different world from the 50s and 60s, although you're not in the East Coast anymore. And I think that there's a lot more type of peer pressure, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, or still in your teens. And that sometimes it's difficult, really, to get out your feelings without feeling that maybe your best friend may just not be able to handle it or be embarrassed to handle it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I can speak personally. My grandfather took his life when he was 37 years old. So it was 1971. And the entire family didn't talk about it at all. They actually said that he died from a heart attack at that time because of the shame associated with suicide and depression at that time, especially among men. Whereas now, I think, not only guys are more open to talk about it, but I think families are more open to talk about mental health struggles within their family because they know the benefit of what a conversation can actually do. And so, fast forward 50 years, and now my entire family's talking about depression and suicide and on a regular basis. And so personally, I've seen a lot of change within it, within that conversation around mental health.
Yeah, it's a weird year for me because I'm 47 right now, and that's the year when I was that my dad, when he took his life back when I was 14 years old. And so it's interesting to see we're both scout leaders, we're both outdoorsmen, we're both all the boxes are ticking that are very, very similar, right? Mm-hmm. But I seem to have more tools than he did. It's a different generation. I have friends that I can count on that I've built up. You're not going to have 25 people that you can talk to, but you have to. I've gotten that core group that we check in with each other. We text on a daily basis and stuff like that. So.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that your kids were in the Scouts. Matt, have the Scouts addressed anything where they may have a badge created where boys are encouraged to talk about whether they feel suicidal or they feel like they're pulling the bulimic because they're either too fat or they don't fit in or some of the other, they're having problems with their peers or maybe they're upset or confused about whether they're a man or a boy or have tendencies towards being female. Do you have anything like that set up for the boys to talk about?
So there are things starting. There is a personal fitness merit badge, which talks about the physical health of all individuals is important, and we all find our own way to be physically healthy. But part of personal fitness is also the mental aspect of it. And so you have to engage in conversations. You have to be able to realize where stresses come in life. So it sort of morphed into away from just being the rugged outdoor type to saying, how are you working on being the best you? Is the best you the person that, you golf or you bike or you run, or it doesn't matter what you're doing exercise-wise, but are you also engaged in your community? Are you engaged with your friends? Are you engaged with your church? Are you engaged? So having those conversations now, the scout leader and the youth, there are various new rules and stuff like that, and so there is a little bit of a line of separation because they want to keep adults and kids not so close together. So you sort of have to lead by example. And
right.
So you're dealing in group talk. You're dealing in, so we have meetings where everybody's just talking about their day and just getting used to having conversations. maybe Robert can speak to more of the other youth issues that are going on and Movember's work towards, having those adult figures in boys' life that lead by example.
Yeah, I'm just curious because there's a lot of the suicide rate up among teenagers has skyrocketed. And the biggest thing outside of that, of course, is the shootings at school. And they keep on pointing out that a lot of these boys, because it seems to be more boys than girls that actually go home, pick up their father's guns, or they buy their guns on the internet, and they're the ones who come into school and shoot it up. And I'm just wondering, since mental health is a big issue, whether, the schools are also, or you as a community are taking steps to make sure that these kids who may be in the fringe are also getting some kind of treatment, or having somebody come in and talk to them to find out exactly what their feelings are doing.
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit on that because I look after our college community, and so we have about 10,000 participants every year who participate in Movember who are in college, and so that's 18 to 24-year-old young men. And these are guys who, are looking to find more support for their fellow students, for their friends around mental health as well as physical health. And so we have a student ambassador program in which we work with, top student leaders on campus who are looking to actually make that change, host events, create men's health panels to have conversations around these issues. And one of the things that that's very apparent on almost every college campus is there's just not enough counselors on campus. Sometimes it takes 2 to 3 months to see a campus counselor. So if you're going through anxiety, in September, you might not actually get to talk to somebody face-to-face until December. And obviously a lot can happen within those 2 to 3 months. And so we're trying to help these guys understand what does peer-to-peer counseling look like? How can they create better conversations and better relationships within the friends that they have and the networks that they have, whether it be within a sports team, a fraternity, or a club, or just in the class? How can they understand how to have a productive conversation around mental health, and how can they listen for signs that a buddy might be struggling? And then most importantly, how can they actually encourage them to seek action? And so giving them the resources and the tools to have that conversation and then know what to do when somebody might open up, about themselves struggling with anxiety or depression or suicidal thoughts. That's the role that we're playing in this space. We're very much on the early intervention and prevention side of things. And a big piece of it is education. So educating these guys what to expect throughout life. There will be ups and downs. And what you can do to actually manage those emotions and help the friends who might be in need.
I remember Movember just recently released the Conversations by Movember, which is a great little animation, interactive learning tool where they put up three little interactions. And it's you test yourself to see if you know the words to be able to continue the conversation. Are you proactively engaging your friend? When your friend says, "Oh, we're all locked down, this is never going to end," you don't just say, "Yep, you're right." You have to find the correct words. And so the more people go and have these types of learning, peer-to-peer is where a lot of help comes from, because we are going through the same thing at the same time. Dads are struggling with other dads. College kids are struggling with other college kids. And so when you see the interactions in that sort of level where, I send out, 1,000 emails a year when I'm doing my campaign, and it's just to touch base. It's just to start the conversation. Because the first time you talk to somebody, you're going to find out that they like beer and you like beer, or they like soccer and you like soccer. And then if you let the conversation end there, then the change doesn't happen. So you have to continue, say, okay, I'll follow up with you next week, and maybe we'll go watch a soccer game, or maybe we'll go do something. And then that way, the next time, it gets a little deeper, and you can really get to the heart of if somebody is struggling or not.
I have 3 grandchildren. I have a 46-year-old son, so it's closer, I guess, to Matthew Skinner.
Yeah.
So, and he has 3 kids, twins at 14, which are girls, and then a little one who's at 7. The little one is a boy. And it seems like the boy is having more trouble with handling the lockdown. And I've been speaking to different parents, and they all pretty much the same thing. The girls seem to be a little more resilient, but it's the boys who seem to have more trouble. Any thoughts on that, gentlemen?
I wholeheartedly agree. As I said before, I mean, there were a couple incidences, the first couple weeks of lockdown. My son was, he was helping with the dishes. He was doing everything, and this was sort of, we were cooking meals, and he was making dim sum, and everything sort of was fun. And then it started to weigh on him. And he's 12 years old, and when you're 12 years old, I mean, don't get me wrong, he says he hates school, but he loves being with his friends. And when the only when the only interaction you have is recess and lunch, and you cannot see your friends, and even playing on a video game, he'll play Fortnite and he'll talk to his friends. So there's a minute social interaction there, but it's still not a face-to-face. It's still not. And I don't know. One day I come in and every stuffed animal's thrown on the floor, and he's like, "Dad, you can blame COVID." The next day or a couple days later, every toy was out of his room. So those are the struggles that a 12-year-old boy goes through, and how do we as adults relate to that? Because we've never been through it at their age.
I haven't been through COVID, but I've been through with the atomic bomb and going down to the building with a coat over my head to protect myself from the radiation.
Yeah.
I've been under desks in the classroom to protect myself from the alien attack. So it's, different. My grandkids look at me and think I'm crazy when I talk about these things. Or during the 50s when they put the first vaccination for polio into sugar tubes and tested it all the children in the United States to see whether it worked or not. So it's a different type of atmosphere, a different type of pressure. But I know my 7-year-old, the same thing. He has his group of friends, and though he loves not going to school, he really misses his friends. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be a problem with him.
Yeah, you brought up a good point, around social connection. And this, isn't only related to males, but all of us, and the importance of social connection. I think it's something that at least I know I've taken for granted now that, we've been in lockdown for a while. But building those social connections and continuing, as Matt said, being able to actually reach out to your friends and have an open and honest conversation and being vulnerable and saying, look, I'm actually not doing too well right now. And, and it's kind of good to hear, Matt, that your son is actually voicing his emotions and opinions, of why he thinks he might be struggling, whether it be COVID related or, doesn't see his friends. But that, I think, is a step in the right direction of identifying, okay, I'm feeling something right now. Maybe it's because of, I haven't seen my friends in a while, but those kind of conversations are a way to actually produce more valuable relationships and more valuable conversations around the topic.
Yeah, I think.
And the fact is that
I think I'm lucky. I'm lucky to the extent that knowing a family history, obviously, because my family talked about all of the depression that was in the family, and I'm able to look for signs, and I'm able to engage him, and follow up and listen without judging, which I think is something that takes some time for some kids to, and adults and everybody to realize that having a conversation without judging is absolutely key.
Mm-hmm.
And having a conversation and listening to what your kids have to say, I think it's the most difficult thing for parents, whether you have a son or a daughter, because they're going to be expressing how they feel. A lot of parents, a lot of times, don't really want to hear how their kids feel because they're struggling with their own feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you dismiss, this goes back historically, right? If you dismiss a boy's complaint now, will that foster a unwillingness to have conversations later in life, right? So if you're able to listen to boys and girls and start conversations earlier in life, and then change will happen over time.
I think so. I mean, I taught my son that it was okay for him to cry. And he says, "Are you sure?" He says, "I don't see very men crying." And I said, "Trust me, cry. Get it out of your system. It makes you feel better. If you have to cry, cry. Trust me. Nobody's going to give you a hard time. I won't."
No.
And that was a great gift to give him, because he tells me, "Well, the other kids laugh at me." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm not their mother. I'm your mother, so don't worry about it."
Right.
And it makes a big difference. So, gentlemen, do you have any plans to maybe initiate some more conversations with the young men as their states go into the green zone and a little more freedom is allowed?
Yeah. So, I mean, personally, I can speak just because I get the opportunity to work with our college community. I'm really excited because we're recruiting, student ambassadors at this moment, and just having so many amazing conversations and on, a lot of learning from these guys, learning their needs, guys who are, coming straight into college from high school, especially at this pivotal time in history when there's so much uncertainty. And I think the needs of these young men they're changing as we're going through this pandemic together. And they're seeing the importance of personal mental health and taking care of each other. And so we're really excited. And just on the back of what Matt mentioned with Movember Conversations, which is our new digital tool, we're actually going to be launching one focused on young men as well, so 18 to 24-year-old men. So giving these guys the tools to have these conversations and to listen as well as open up and encourage action. We'll hopefully be launching that in the fall. So that's something I'm really excited about, giving these guys more tools to bring back to their campus and create a larger campaign for men's mental health within their campus and their entire community.
Yeah, I continue to obviously send out my emails, and when I can now start seeing my friends again and my cohorts and stuff, my focus has always been on, my peer group. Like I said, I send out a bunch of emails to plant seeds and to get people to work within their communities. And if you can affect, 10 people that surround you, then they affect their 10 people and so on and so forth. So as I continue to work with people, the adults that I know, then if they're able to talk to me to make sure they're okay, then we move to the next step. Make sure your kids are okay and follow up, because they're given the tools to then listen. So as I talk to dads, I share the struggles that my kids are going through so that they can share the struggles that their kids are going through, so that we work together and, well, how did you solve that and how did you solve this? So I look at it as a two-pronged approach, because I have the connections to the dads in my life that they will then help the sons and the daughters and the wives too. I mean, we all we talk to our wives too. This is everybody helps everybody, and it all comes down to, again, starting conversations and having conversations is where change happens. If you can't, if you give somebody the opportunity to have that first conversation where they say, you know what, you've been asking for 6 months and I've been lying, but actually I'm not doing well, then that's when change happens. So that's what we're all hoping for.
Then you can start this conversation as how are you going to feel when you go back to school in the fall? I mean, my son already told me how his school district is handling it, and he is not a happy camper about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The high school is junior high and senior high all together. So you got 12-year-old kids mixing with 18 and 19-year-old kids. And apparently they're going to open up for 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, and the first, the younger ones will go in. Wednesday they'll clean up the schools, and then the older kids go in on Thursday and Friday. And my son is not real happy about that at all. And if I had a child around 13, 14, whether they're male or female, I would not be a happy camper either. I went to, when I was living in New Jersey, we had over 3,000 kids in our high school. So they had to split the day in half. So that kids started school around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, were finished by 2 in the afternoon, and then the next shift came in. And it was a lot of, problems just with that alone. So are you going to start a conversation about kids and parents re-entering the schoolyard?
And so my daughter's, I can speak to that pretty clearly because my daughter's school, it's a smaller private school, but they noticed within a good month, I think that as distance learning, was becoming a new reality to families all across the country, they noticed pretty quickly that the participation in Zoom classes, either the kids' shoulders were shrunk or they just didn't look the same. It just wasn't the same, and so they instantly said, we've changed our schedule. Here you go. Now it is online from 9 to 12:30. Here's the deal, and then every Wednesday is a Wellness Wednesday. So you come in and there's 3 things. There's a Netflix movies. There's a yoga class. So they have all these things to engage the kids in a academic, non-judgmental, just give the kids the space to be able to laugh with their friends.
Yeah.
And so this was, you could see, it started an hour later, so high school, kids could sleep in just that little bit. And so when we get the survey that says, what are we going to do in the fall? They're still trying to figure out their system. I instantly wrote back and I said, I don't know what you're going to do, but somehow if you cannot get rid of Wellness Wednesdays because we're still going to be struggling and we still need it even after the virus, whether it goes away and stuff like that, because there's other struggles that these young kids need to do, and I think adults too need a Wellness Wednesday every once in a while, and that's why we all have to reach out to our friends and say, now that things are opening up, let's have a face-to-face. Let's, go, walk the neighborhood, go for a run. Let's get something on the books and get back to a reality.
Let's make it a national day.
Exactly. Yeah.
I really think that'd be a great thing. The one thing they do in China that I do approve of is that if you do any type of Tai Chi or karate or something, these people, they all get out, hundreds of them, and they go through all the positions and everything, but it's also a form of meditation, and you can see how serene they are. And I'm thinking, we need to do that.
Yeah, I think there's, Movember has done some great work with more of the corporations to try to get that type of discussion happening. Because it's so easy for a company just to say, okay, everybody has to, you could have breaks. If you can create a corporate culture that includes the mental health aspect of everybody working there, it'd just be so much more productive from a business standpoint if you can, work on some of these other things as individuals.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the key is going to be to adapt, right? As you mentioned, Matt, it's great to see that your school administration listened and watched the students, and that's going to be key for companies as well as schools, going forward of how are the students and the employees reacting, and how can we, adapt the schedule, because there's definitely going to need to be some things that change, even though they're shifting all the schedules. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but I think we're all learning that we need to be more flexible and malleable, in our day-to-day operations, and learning from our students and our employees of how we can make their time more enjoyable, but also focus on their mental well-being. So it'll be interesting to see how everybody adapts, even once they do open up.
I agree. So, Robert, Matt, could you please tell everybody where they can find you on the World Wide Web, how they can contact you should they wish to talk to you, and anything else you would like to add?
Okay. Technically, you can find me on my Instagram, I guess, is the first way, because you'll see my story and my journey of me running. It's Mobro Skinner, MOBRO.Skinner, SKINNER, on Instagram, and I'm a pretty simple guy. Every it's just me running, me talking, and having conversations about ending the stigma of the lack of conversations, being afraid to talk about mental health, and that's the easiest way to reach out to me, and I'd love to hear from everybody.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Robert?
Yeah. First off, thank you so much for having us on. And to just kind of highlight everything we've talked about is it's people like you who are engaging, organizations like Movember in the conversation and starting conversations hopefully within your audience around men's mental health. So thank you for the support and for bringing us on. And for anyone who would like to learn more about Movember or get more involved, the website is Movember.com. Very simple. That's the month of November, but spelled with an M. And they can learn more about the foundation, how we raise money, and what we raise money for. And it's a huge thanks to guys like Matt Skinner, who are our ambassadors out there in the community. We're all peer-to-peer led. So, all the funds that we raise is through the backs of normal guys and girls, who are raising money, growing mustaches, and starting conversations. And so we'd be nothing without our community. And so if anybody wants to get involved, they can go to Movember.com. There's also a contact link on there where they can contact us. If they want to email me directly, they can email me at robert.huffman@movember.com. That's HUFFMAN. Or they can follow us on Instagram or Facebook as well and see more updates as we post on a weekly basis.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen and adults of all ages, you can hear this interview all over again with Robert and Matt over at https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. Menu, right-hand side, scroll down, cool your heels, and you'll hear it there. Also on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Spreaker, Amazon, Alexa, Spotify, Chaser, well, practically all over social media. We're all over the place. And before you go away and stray, W.R. Ing had this to say in 1931, faith makes many of the mountains which it has to remove. Thank you all very much for listening, and remember, please keep listening. Thank you.